Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CK Stories from the Heart. I'm your host, Charles King, and I want to apologize for having some technical difficulties here in the beginning. Let me just get afternoon.
Hi there. How are you?
I am excellent. Thanks for joining us today. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I'm glad that you're here. Is there anything you'd like to say to our audience before we get into the show?
Just thank you so much, everyone who's taken the time out of your your Sunday to participate and join the live stream to learn all about erasing my home and about me, Trish Lacy. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
So, what I like to do in our initial part here of your interview here is I like for people to get the opportunity to get to know who you are before you became this outstanding individual that you are today. So, Trish, before we get into everything that followed, I want to start at the beginning. Who was Trish Lacy before this marriage? What was life like? And what did you believe about love and relationships and your future?
Oh my goodness. Before this marriage, Trish Lacy was a lot different. To be transparent, I think a lot of little girls, when they grow up, they envision themselves getting married, wearing the white dress, getting a big house, having the white picket fence, and that was never me. I was a little girl who just at when I was younger, both of my parents got divorced when I was young. My mom got remarried to the wonderful stepfather that I have. My father is wonderful as well. And my grandparents, they didn't have the perfect relationship. It was good. I just knew that that was not something that I wanted. But then when I met my husband, I had been engaged a few times. Obviously, never made it down the altar. I just knew that at that time that that was the person that I thought was my person. Until I saw some signs and recognized that I made a bad choice and did not. I was too ashamed to tell other people I messed up. I should have done this. This is. I mean, even to the morning before the wedding, knowing this is the wrong decision. And it's okay to say that it is, just not being brave enough to say this is not what I should be doing. But I did grow up here in St. Louis, Missouri, Wellston, Missouri to be specific. Went to Lutheran North High School, graduated from Savannah, Georgia, went to Windsor Forest High School. And now I am, living, breathing a life that I've rebuilt for myself and my daughter. And I'm very happy with where we are right now.
Oh wow. Um, when you first met your husband, what did that feel like? Describe the early days, the pursuit, the attention, the feeling of being chosen. For people who may not know the term love bombing, can you walk us through what that actually looked like in your experience?
Well, that's a lot. Yes. When I met my then husband, he was fresh out of jail. We worked together at a call center called MCI in Newport News, Virginia. We were coworkers. We were friends. There was no romance there for us when we first met, and we were friends. For me, that's wonderful. I have to be friends with someone that I am in a relationship with, and I have always been that way. I cannot be with someone that I can't be myself with. And so he was just that guy, soft spoken, very quiet, extremely charismatic. Everyone loved him. And we became the best of friends. I moved out of town, went through a few relationships, as did he, and we continued just to stay in touch. And once, when I moved to North Carolina and he was in Virginia, we were just 3 hours away from each other. Decided to hang out one weekend, and the rest was history. So from there, I think the love bombing is just when a person is continuously showering you with attention and showering you with what feels like love, admiration, adoration, gifts. So all of those things, he appeared to be extremely empathetic, and he seemed to be extremely attentive to my every need. If I ever thought about something, before I even finished my thought, I had it. Whether it doesn't have to be extravagant things. It was just the fact that there was one person that was listening to everything that I thought about, everything that I cared about, and was wanting to take care of those needs and provide for them. And that was him. Um, and shortly into the relationship, after the engagement and so on, he changed. And I saw how these things are important. So here's why I'm bringing them up. How he interacted and engaged with his family was very different from how he interacted and engaged with mine. Like, I am, to this day, and probably will always be, a family girl at heart. Like, my family, that means the most to me. I could not need a friend because my family comes first. And for him, that just wasn't the case. But he did seem to bond exceptionally well with my family and blended in so seamlessly, that it just was like it didn't really even matter. But whenever I was with his family, there were some moments of discomfort because how can this be the same person that is so wonderful with my family, if that
Wow.
makes any sense? So there's always two different people that I was trying to kind of navigate through and figure out who the real husband was at the time, who's the real person. And so during the early stages, the good outweighed the bad, until I started to experience what I would say emotional trauma, second guessing my thoughts, my feelings, my reality, wondering whether or not those things were really real or am I making this stuff up? Because when you're involved in a relationship with what can be described as a narcissist or narcissism, that person manipulates your thoughts and your feelings and makes you feel like or question whether or not they're real. I could say my feelings were hurt, or this what you did not appear to be okay, and it would turn around on me. Well, I didn't do that. You made me do it. Or you don't really feel that
Wow.
way. You're too sensitive. Or you are making these thoughts up in your head. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like for so long, it's like when you built up the courage to tell the person how you felt, and then they diminish your feelings. After a while, you shut down and you stop sharing your feelings, and you really do start questioning: is my reality my own?
You know, I think a lot of us, especially when we're young, you know, we always make that mistake. And you know, when you say, "Oh, okay, well, no, wait a minute, that ain't right." What was the point that you know that when you first connected with him? What were those things that made you connect to him? And when you connected, when did you start seeing the difference?
Oh my goodness. He was just this person everyone loved to be around. He was funny. Like I said, he was charismatic. He had a very lively personality, very different from when I first met him. When I first met him, he was transitioning from being incarcerated. So he was, quiet, just acclimating himself to being, out in the civilian world. But once, we became friends, he was extremely intelligent, extremely funny. I think he's very smart, and I love smart people. I only surround myself with people that can stimulate me, mentally, and those were all of those things. He had a great group of friends, and they have been solid friends that have been in his life since childhood. Those things were important as well, which to me meant he was a stand-up person. There was just so much to him. What started to change was the dynamic within the groups. The dynamics between us. Like, for example, he was a sales manager. There was constantly coaching of people that work for him. But when the phone calls start to happen at 11, 12 p.m., and you're still saying you're working and you're coaching, I start to question those things, right? So, or we have get togethers and I see you off to the side with another young lady. It seems suspicious, but I'm not accusatory. I'm asking a question. If it becomes a big deal, it becomes a red flag for me. So there were so many things that started to occur that became red flags, and it never ended. It never ended.
So there's often a moment, or maybe a slow accumulation of moments when something starts to feel off.
Yes.
And so when you first start to sense that something wasn't right, what did you tell yourself in that moment to rationalize it or push it down?
I told myself that I married him for better or for worse. I told myself that I was going to do everything I can to make the marriage work. I did love him at one point. And so I thought that I could just love it away. You know how you feel like you're in sometimes in a relationship where you can love someone and give them all the care, the love, the guidance in the world and hope that they would take your feedback or take your guidance and say, "Hey, I want to make her happy or I want to do better." And sometimes it was temporary, but I had to learn you can't change a tiger stripes. You really can't. That person is who they are. And especially if I invite you to attend therapy because I start to believe that there's something wrong with me, and I say, I want to go and I think you should come with me. He did go one time with me. And did you know what happened during that session? Because he's so good and masterful at what he is. The therapist told him he didn't have to come anymore. They told them that they only needed to see me. I was the problem.
Oh wow! Get out of town!
Serious. He was that good.
Wow.
So I started to see this therapist for a while, a couple of months, and I actually began to enjoy it. Having an outlet outside of my home, sharing my thoughts, feelings, all of the inner things that I wouldn't dare share with anyone else with this therapist. He started to get upset that I was going to therapy. You wanted to go, I wanted to go. We agreed to work on it together. They said they didn't need you, so but they still wanted to talk to me to help me work through my own personal things. Now you don't like that either. So it was a never ending cycle of like I couldn't win in this scenario at all.
Wow. So you were building a successful professional career at the very same time your home life was unraveling. How did you manage that? And what did it cost you to show up as a capable, put together executive every day while living through what you were living through behind the closed doors?
I am very good at compartmentalizing my emotions. And I think that's a gift and a curse. I can put something in a box and put it in the back of my closet, and I just don't want to open Pandora's box because I don't know how I'm going to react. So I can go to work and focus on work and be a boss and do the things that I need to do and lead a team and be objective and show all the empathy. I can give them everything I wish I had at home and be successful and win. But when I came home, I shrank. I shrank into this unrecognizable being that just was not the same equivalent or caliber person that I was at work. There were times where I would win awards at work, literally come home with a plaque to say, hey, I won this award, I won this trip, I've got this going on. And he would say, well, what's for dinner? Yeah,
No way.
very true.
You know something. I gotta say that there had to be something that you've got this strength, this resilience, this that's inside you. That apparently something had you to say when it was time to do something or to deal with this. How you dealt with this? Can you tell us how were you being so strong
Because
throughout all of that?
it's a lot of different factors for that. I've always seen strong women in my life. My mother is, retired military, strong woman. Oh my God, I don't think I've ever met a person as strong as my mother. I think I maybe seen her cry once in my lifetime, and that was the day of my marriage. And I was wondering if she was crying because she was happy or she was crying because I was doing it. I don't know. Another person was my grandmother. My grandmother was exceptionally strong as well. She is probably just one of she has so much strength, so much resilience. She went through a relationship I feel like no woman should have ever gone through without disclosing my grandmother's story. But she was a strong, strong woman, and I loved her dearly while she was on this earth. And she taught my mom and my aunt everything that they know. So all I know is strength. But I also grew up knowing that what happened in this house does not leave this house,
Mhm.
right? And so that still rings true at that time for me. Like what happens here stays here. That's nobody's business but ours. So I kept that, but I also knew, aside from whatever relationship, I grew up with a stepfather who instilled in me, you don't decide to be mediocre. If you decide to do something, you decide to give it your all and be your best at it. So if regardless of what's going on at home, when I go to work, I go to work and I'm gonna give it 150% because I didn't wake up, get dressed, and drive there to be mediocre. So that's exactly what I did. And that's why he was a sergeant major, because he did everything he could to be all that he can. And I want to thank them both for their service.
I want to thank each and every individual for watching the show. Let me put this here on the screen for you, Trish. This is John, and he's saying good evening. He's watching from Kenya.
Hi, John. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate that so much for your support.
Let's talk about the gaslighting and the loss of reality. The term gaslighting gets used a lot today, but I want to make sure that our audience truly understands it from the inside. Can you describe a moment or a pattern where gaslighting made you genuinely question your own memory, your own sanity, and your own truth?
Yes. I remember a situation, there's a couple, but I'm going to go with this one where I had a conversation with my spouse, my then spouse, about um, pictures in his phone, infidelity. This was an actual conversation. And this is when we got to a place where we agreed to marriage counseling. I'm sitting there disclosing the situation about what happened, and he's saying that never happened. We never had that conversation. I never cheated on her. I don't know what picture she's talking about. In fact, I don't even know why we're here. We don't even have any problems in our marriage. That's gaslighting.
Yeah. Oh wow. You know what? I'm sorry. I just call that a serial liar, as everything else. But that makes. Oh my god. That sounds so much like the political spectrum today. Don't
Mhm.
believe your what you see. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, over 15 years. there must have been moments that brought you to your knees without forcing you to revisit anything you aren't ready to share. But I like to ask, what was the hardest moment you faced inside that marriage? The one that even now you carry with you?
Wow, that is such a great question. The one that I wish I'd never faced, the hardest moment that even now I wish I hadn't done, carried with me. You know what? Here's what I'll say. There were so many moments that I knew that I should have gone, that I should have left. And instead, I chose to have a child with this man. I do not, by any means or any stretch of the imagination, regret my child. I love her, and she is the best thing that has happened to me and for me. This is an issue for me because not only did I go through what I went through in the marriage, but because I had her, I subjected her to the same things. And she did not deserve that. She deserved a mother that could be strong, a mother who could be resilient, a mother who valued her own self and knew her own worth, a mother who knew when it was time to leave and that she didn't have to sit there and see that. That's my biggest regret.
So, so let's talk about the moment your daughter changed everything. You've spoken about her being a turning point and the reason you found the courage to finally act. Tell us about that moment. What did you see or feel or realize in connection with your daughter that shifted something irreversible inside of you?
It's kind of like a funny story to me now that I think about it, but it wasn't funny then. I was never upset, but it was a serious situation where she is like, I'm going to tell you, Mr. King, she is so intelligent, so intuitive, so smart, and she watches to this day everything her mother does. And so she has at one point asked me, "Mom, you are always smiling, but why do your eyes look so sad?" And I'm like, "What? Mom's not sad. I'm not sad. I'm smiling." And she's like, "Your eyes look so sad." So I realized and I recognized that she's watching me. So she's watching me cater to people who don't appreciate what I'm doing, who don't value what I bring to the home or to the table. She's watching me be exhausted and overworked. She's watching me be ignored in my home. She is literally watching the slow erasure of my identity. My identity. She's watching this, and I recognize that. And I'm like, I would never, ever, ever want her to go through something like this, ever. And I don't want her to feel like this is okay. This is not love. This is not what it's supposed to feel like. And this is not your role in the marriage either. So I then decide, just after a series of events, that it was time for me to leave. And there's a chapter in this book, and it's called The Conversation in the Cereal Aisle. The wrong conversation to have with my child. She was very, very young, but honestly, she was the only person I trusted. She was living in the house with me, seeing what I saw, and clearly, based on what she was asking, she knew what I was going through. So I had a conversation with her, like, what would that look like? Two friends, you have two friends that are no longer friends, they respect and care for one another. How would you feel if that friendship ended? And she connected the dots. Like in the grocery store, she seemed like everything was fine. She understood everything was fine. Friends break up all the time. She understood it. But as soon as we got home, she told her father, "Mommy is leaving you." And that became a big situation in our home. I mean, before we could even get the groceries out the car, she ran upstairs and said, "Mommy's leaving you." And he ran downstairs and we had that conversation. And at that point, I couldn't deny it. I was already like absolute, like was already resolved with that decision that I was leaving. And so, ironically, it was around the time we were about to renew our lease in our Florida home. And so he was so upset he left. And I was conflicted because yes, I was ready to go, but I hadn't planned for that conversation to happen that day, for the relationship to end that day. So he took some time, left for several hours, and I was just left with her and his daughter, who was also staying with us at the time. and his grandson, all in the home, dealing with all of this adrenaline, all of this energy, trying to understand what was going to happen next. So when he came back home hours later, he said, "We're not renewing our lease. We're going to go our separate ways." That was the best thing that he and she could have ever done for me, because if she had not ratted me out, I am not confident that I would have left that time. I probably still would have been one of those women that would have been like, I can make this work for as long as I can until my daughter graduates high school and goes off to college, because it was so important for me for her to have like a whole home, to have two parents in it, because I didn't have it, but not recognizing that what she needed was for me to be healthy and happy. So if she hadn't done what she had done, I probably would not have left when I left. But that was the best thing she could have ever done for me.
As you mentioned that, because there are like a lot of women, that kind of like have that same thought process as you was just mentioning about, I'll just try to tough it out for this time to make sure that, the kids are gone away from home, and then I'll do this. What can you tell women out there right now today, those that are going through this exact same situation? What would be your advice for them? What should they do?
I feel like if they're going through things in their marriage, they should look at their children as well, because the children, again, they are watching everything you're doing. They're watching what you're doing. They're watching what your spouse is doing. And sometimes they don't understand right from wrong, because they're not emotionally equipped at this particular point, depending on the age, to process that. So if you have a father that was like my husband, my daughter could have internalized that, like, that's what I think a marriage and a husband's supposed to do. So I think maybe that's what she'll gravitate to. And then maybe she would think that, hey, this is what what wives are supposed to do. I don't want to be a wife. Or maybe I want to be just like my mom. They are watching and absorbing everything that we're going through. And if we don't want that same thing for them, we either have to have the tough conversations, we definitely have to make the tough decisions. And for me, that was leaving, but that was also putting her in therapy immediately, so that she could learn to process what she had heard, what she saw, how she was feeling about the breakup of her home. Because to her, all she saw was sad eyes, of course, but she never saw a lot of fighting. She never saw any of the dramatics that people see when marriages come to an end. She didn't see all the tumultuous stuff. She just knew that mom was not happy, and she made a choice to leave. So I would say examine the situation, think about it, not just for yourself, but for your kids, because what's most important is not about the facade of a happy marriage and a happy relationship. It's about being happy, healthy, and whole to your children.
So let's talk about what erased truly meant. The title of your memoir is Erased in My Home. That word erased is extraordinary in its precision. What did being erased actually feel like from the inside, and what parts of Trish Lacy were lost? And did you know they were disappearing as it was happening?
So the first part is no, I did not know it was happening as it was happening. I immersed myself in my marriage. I was a devoted ride or die, loving wife, caring partner. Um, and I just forgot all the things that were about me, make that calling me weak or whatever it is. I immerse myself in anything I do. I want to be great at it. And that's what I did. But as it started to happen, I slowly started to notice that, like, hey, you really don't know what you like to do. You really don't hang out with friends that often as you used to. You, your interest, everything about you is disappearing. And then eventually, your self respect, your self worth, your confidence, all of it erodes. And then you sit around one day and realize your existence does not even exist inside this home. You have essentially allowed yourself to be erased inside your own home, because
Wow.
you have. And that's where erasing my home came from.
Wow. So, and for those of you that haven't gotten it yet, here's the book. I think you guys should get this book because this book is very valuable, and it basically I mean, the story that Trish is telling right now, as you read this definitely has to touch your heart because what she's saying in this book, I know for sure that this resonates with an enormous amount of people that have gone through the same thing. You guys need to go to Amazon and get this book.
Thank you for that.
So now we're at the point where we're going to talk about your decision to leave. Deciding to leave a narcissist relationship is rarely a single clean decision. It usually is a process. So, with that being said, walk us through what that process looked like for you and what did it take to finally go?
I knew I was leaving 3 years before I left. So 3 years before I left, I knew I was leaving. I just didn't know when. I remember it started to get to the point where I was overwhelmed by what I was feeling and what I was going through that I could not contain it. I remember there was a time I met one of my very best friends, my call her my sister, just one of the closest people in my life. I met her for the very first time and we clicked in my home, in my garage. And I told her that very first time I met her, I'm leaving this man. I don't need him. And she was really like, okay, this girl's weird, but it was like, it got to a point where I was just overwhelmed by everything I was going through. And so I started to do work for myself, working on me. And there was a point where I left the home and started staying with my parents. I stayed for a weekend. I didn't tell them everything that was going on. That's important too, because I've been in relationships. When you involve your family, sometimes and things get back together, things work out. It just alters the rest of the trajectory of the relationship because they have a feeling about something you've told them out of anger. So I just told them a little bit of what was going on, asked could I stay for the weekend. Of course, my parents are like, yes, you could stay here, you and Ryan, my daughter. So we stayed there, and I think when I told him on a Monday that I was leaving and I was going to spend the weekend away on a Friday, I had packed up our bags and everything, and he called like, "Where are you?" And I recognized that he wasn't listening and he didn't think I was serious. I knew then that was a problem. Like, you don't think I'll ever leave you? After all the stuff you do, you don't think that I'd ever leave you. What should have been a pivotal moment was when he was having an affair with a woman before we moved to Florida. We were in North Carolina, and I had a conversation with her. That's also in the book. Just having a conversation to understand, because they were in a relationship for about 2 years or so. She was not disrespectful, but she said to me, he told me that you found out that you knew and that he was saying he was never going to leave you. So why do you care? So I had a conversation with her like, you're assuming I want to stay. You're assuming that I'm choosing to stay because he told you he was never going to leave me. He's not the decider here. So there were so many things about that. So, but the one moment that you're looking for is, that I had not been getting along with my stepdaughter at the time, and there was conflict between her son and my daughter, and there was just so much going on with him and just the dynamics in the home. You go to work, you're looking forward to going home, kicking your shoes off, relaxing. That wasn't the case for me. It gave me anxiety. So one day I was driving home and I pulled into the driveway and I couldn't get out the car. I sat in that car and I cried and I cried and I cried because I did not want to go inside. I didn't. It was just the chaos inside the home that I just did not, I no longer had the heart to deal with. And that was the moment for me where I was like, I cannot do this anymore.
You know, when you told me that when we were talking on the phone, I want you to know that that was truly heartfelt
It's true.
because I just cannot imagine, you having to go to your home and to feel like that and to just not want to get out the car. That means that had to be horrible.
It hurt.
Let's talk about the smear campaign. So we know anyone that's left a narcissist relationship knows what comes next.
Yes.
The person who caused the harm becomes the victim,
Yep.
in the retelling. Did you experience that? And if so, how did you survive what can only be described as the war on your repudiation and your reality?
I love the question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before, but it's 100% factual. He did go on this smear campaign. He did go on the defensive and tell people his side of the story. And until now, I never did. So we separated in 2018, officially were divorced in October of 2020. I wrote this book, it came out in 2026. Up until now, people have never heard my side of the story. I have never said a single negative thing about this man. Um, he will tell you differently because of how his interaction with his daughter is strained. Um, but for him, anything that happened negatively was as a result of things I or my mother may or may not have said about him. But I didn't care enough to put that on her or anyone else. I figured they would learn it on their own. And so I was focused on rebuilding my life and rebuilding myself and reclaiming my purpose and reclaiming my voice. That's what I was focused on. I was never focused on him once I made that decision to leave. I was focused on her safety, if anything else, but that was it. I never went out and told any stories about our marriage until I wrote my book.
Wow. Well, let me just put this on the screen for you. This is, I want to say it right. If I say it wrong, please forgive me. Task Heap.
I think
It
my
says
friend
that,
is shy. Hi, Tosh.
okay. I highly recommend the book. It's valuable for anyone in a relationship who has been ignoring red flags and questioning your confidence and self worth.
Yeah.
So, so the beginning of your heal, well, the beginning to heal. Can you tell us what did the early days of healing actually look like? Not the polished version, the real version. And when did you first feel like yourself again, even just for a moment? And what was the first step you took to begin reclaiming your identity?
It's very elementary. I went to therapy first. I met this amazing therapist. Her name was Rachel Jean Felix. And she was recommended to me by that same young lady that I told you I met in my garage, and she thought I was crazy. But I went to see that therapist, and she changed my life. When I tell you this woman, she met me at my deepest, darkest, lowest point, and pulled me out of the dirt, out of the gutter. It made me see myself, like who I was, my potential, what I was capable of. Like literally made me question what is or what was your favorite color, like elementary stuff. And I would be like, oh my God, I have always loved the color green. Like that elementary, like you forget who you are. But then she also, and I'm bringing this out because I carry this with me every day, everywhere I go. And I've been reading it since I saw her. She
Mhm.
recommended this book called The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beatty.
Okay.
I will forever swear by this book. It's every day, there's a date on every page. So it's like one page a day will uplift you and give you steps to take for recovery. So for me, it was recovering from a narcissistic abusive relationship. And every single page every day gave me the strength and the courage that I needed to move on. I also used to watch this show called Being Mary Jane. And Mary Jane
Yes.
used to use post-it notes with affirmations, and she used to put it everywhere in her house. Well, that became me. True story. I had post-it notes on my wall, post-it notes on my mirror. I had post-it notes in my daughter's bathroom for her to read them. I had post-it notes everywhere, and so it was just focusing on all the reasons why I knew that I was built for something greater, all the reasons why I know that greater was possible. And I had to learn how to believe in myself once again. And I leaned on my friends and my support system for guidance and help. Because again, a lot of them didn't even know what I was going through. And when I started to tell them those things, once you open up Pandora's box, it's hard to close it. So your emotions start to come out, or you start to really deal with things you didn't want to deal with. So it was like I had to go through what I went through to just rebuild. I had to get to the bottom and be the most broken, most vulnerable person that I have ever been in my life in order to just rebuild myself. And it was a journey. It's still a process. It's still a journey, but I'm 1,000% happier with where I am today.
So let's talk about your role here of coaching and therapy. Your
Okay.
book carries endorsements from professional coaches and licensed therapists. How significant was the professional support in your recovery? And for someone watching right now who is afraid to seek help, what would you say to them?
Well, there's two reasons why I did that. These people were involved in my recovery. So I felt like it was very important for them to show or to say who I was when they met me versus who I am now. Two very different people. But also, I think there's such a stigma behind getting help. And also, there's a difference between getting help for in therapy and having a life coach. Two completely very different things. My opinion is you need both. So I had both. So I asked both of those professionals to play an important role in my book to really add credibility to the book because it's also important for people to know, like, yes, I wrote a book about my marriage. I'm not bitter. This is really my life story. This is really what happened to me. And these are the professionals that helped me through. And so you can do it too. You need to go out and find these people and help and allow them to help you deliver you from whatever pain or circumstance you may be in. They will be able to help you through it.
And so, writing a memoir about abuse requires a willingness to be seen in your most vulnerable moments, permanently, publicly, and permanently. What made you decide to write Erased in My Home? And who did you write it for?
Erased in my home, I was encouraged to write this book for so long because of the narrative that was being depicted of me by my ex husband. But also, my reservation was because, again, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't. But there were so many people in my life that knew, like, there was they felt like my marriage was successful. That was the story that I put out there. I mean, there's so many pictures on Facebook. We're on trips and vacations and we look happy. We're doing all the things. And I remember taking those pictures knowing in my mind I was so unhappy. But you would never know it because I'm smiling in every picture. Um, but when I had to tell the story about what happened, there were so many people that like, oh my God, that happened to me. Oh my God, that happened to Susie over here. I know that. Oh, I have a friend that's going through that too. And so I felt like as alone as I felt, I needed to write it down and tell people the journey that I went through to recovery, to healing. Because there's one thing to leave, there's another thing to leave. I mean, to heal. Those are two completely different things. And you need both. Leaving is not solving the issue, but healing does.
If a woman picks up Erased My Home and reads the last page and closes it, what do you hope is sitting in her chest at that moment? What is the feeling, the truth, the conviction you want her to walk away carrying?
I know it's hard. I know that you are exhausted from carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders day in and day out. As women, we are trained and taught that we are super women, and we are by a lot of accounts. We are super women, but there are times when we need help. There are times when we need to be seen. We need someone to offer the shoulder to support us as well. And I just want them to know that I see them and they are not alone. And healing from the situation, and when I say healing, I don't necessarily mean leaving, but when you heal from the situation, life is 10 times better. And it's, you feel so much more blessed because of the fact that you've taken the time to address what's bothering you in your life and the discernment. Like, get the help that you need. You can do it. I'm not promising you it's going to be easy. I would be lying to you to say it would be easy, but it's worth every single effort that you put forth into it.
And as we mentioned earlier, we were talking about those red flags. Um, when you look back now with the clarity you have, what were the signs that were there from the beginning? The ones you either didn't see or saw and explained away, or what do you most wish you had known?
Some of the red flags that I saw were, again, naked pictures in the phone with hey, I got these pictures for us. I never asked to be a part of a threesome with any woman. I don't know why you would get pictures, but it was from an ex girlfriend. So, but I don't know why you blame that on me. I never asked for that. Red flags would be missing finances, not being involved enough as I should have been in that, not knowing, having an explanation for why money's missing is another red flag. Red flag would be if there's a difference between how he interacts with his family versus how he interacts with yours. Because that's a huge deal in a marriage. Your families have to be intertwined. You're not just marrying one person, you're marrying into an entire family. And if that doesn't mesh well, it's never going to work, especially if you don't get along well with the mother. It's going to wreak havoc on that relationship as it did with mine. I mean, I could go on and on for hours about all the red flags that were there that I ignored, but don't dismiss them.
So, so Trish, I want you to take a moment and speak directly through you to someone who may be watching this right now from inside a relationship that is breaking them. Someone who may not have the words yet, or the courage, or the resources. What do you say to her?
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes. Wait a minute.
There's a storm here and it's knocked the power out.
Yeah. So that question that I just had is, I want you to take a moment and speak directly through you to someone who may be watching this right now from inside a relationship that is breaking them. Someone who may not have the words yet, or the courage, or the resources. What do you say to her?
You always have the resources. You have a friend, you have a mother, you have people in your life that you may not even think about that's a resource for you. You have a pastor. You can reach out to therapists. What I've learned is some of them do work pro bono. They will give you grants to get the help that you need. You also now have me. I've been through this before. Don't hesitate to reach out to me for support and guidance. And I'm willing to talk to anyone about just about anything to help them through the scenario. And the reason why is invisible scars to me hurt the most. They hurt greater than physical scars. Physical scars disappear. You see them today, they're gone tomorrow. Emotional scars last forever. And sometimes people, what I've read is a lot of people do not survive narcissistic abuse because it affects your brain, it affects your mind, it affects the way you think. So if there's ever a chance that you feel alone, just know that I am here as well. But that's also why I'm working on creating the Unerased Foundation so that no one would ever say they're ever alone and there's no resources to support for them because there will be.
So tell us about the Unerased Foundation. Tell us about what it does.
So, what the Unerased Foundation will do is be a resource for anyone, and this is just not about women or men who have been in what I would like to say abusive relationship or narcissistic relationships as well. This extends to other forms of mental health, and I'm going to say my daughter is neurodivergent. And so, my experience here in Missouri, since we've been here, we've been having a struggle with getting her the help and the resources that she needs. And part of that has to do with economic status, a part of it has to do with, demographics. There's a lot of different things that go into play where you're telling someone your child is autistic or they have ADHD or they need support, they have depression, whatever. So, I want to create a foundation for anyone that's going through something like that, whether they're a woman that's in a relationship, domestic violence, emotional abuse, a caregiver who's exhausted, because I've been there too for caring for someone who is neurodivergent. I just want there to be a place for a safe space where people can go and say what they need and have someone willing to spend the time to help them and be able to provide it.
So, your daughter was the reason that you left your husband. As she grows older and becomes more aware, how do you approach conversations with her about what your family went through, and how do you tell the truth while also protecting her?
That's a really deep question. So there's not a lot of conversations she and I can't have. She's now 16 years old. her relationship and her feelings are about her father are her own. There is nothing that I have said to her that has shaped her feelings. And I think that's what a lot of people fail to understand, that even if I were to say something negatively about him, which I never did, her spending her own time with him has shaped how she's felt. Because, of course, we had the custodial agreement where she was supposed to spend 1 week with him and 1 week with me. So her experience when she was away was much different than when she was with me. So she shaped her own opinions, and her own experiences were born through that. She no longer had her mom as a buffer. So she got to see things for what they truly are. And she's able to come up with her own conclusions. And a lot of times she doesn't talk to me about it, which is, I think, in a lot of ways, that's great. She has her own outlet. She talks to her therapist. And so she does. She has an outlet where she can be honest, be free, talk about that dynamic and that relationship, what her desires are, whether she wants to reach out, whether she doesn't. And that's not something that I need to be involved with at this stage in her life. I can encourage it, which I have, but that's between her and her father, and I leave it at that.
So you speak passionately about breaking generational cycles of abuse. Why is that frame so important to you, and what does it actually mean in practice? How do we interrupt patterns that have been passed down for decades, sometimes without anyone even naming them?
Awareness. So, like I said, there's certain things my grandmother went through that I will not name. I won't talk about because that's not my story. But also there's, other things within other members of my family's relationships that I've seen as well. My daughter has seen what I've gone through. And so the awareness of it all and choosing to act and move differently is how I break that cycle. I know what I don't want her to learn. I know what I don't and what I'm not trying to teach her. I know what I don't want her to accept. I don't want her to mistake certain things, manipulation for love. Like all those things, and we will have those conversations. The door is always open. I have learned I cannot shy away from those situations because I've already lived the fake life. I've already lived the facade where I faked happiness, and I'm not willing to do that anymore. I know what I'm worth, and I definitely do not want to raise a daughter who devalues her own self because she's trying to live a life for other people. That's not what I'm trying to do.
So, for let me hold on a second here. For those of you at the top of the hour, those of you in our TikTok family, at the top of the hour, if the show does cut off on TikTok, please go over to YouTube and catch the rest of the show at CK Stories from the Heart. Again, for those in our TikTok family, at the top of the hour, please transfer over to the YouTube channel CK Stories from the Heart to continue watching the show. Um, what thriving? I'm sorry. I need to ask you this, and I want you to answer it without shrinking. What does thriving look like for Trish Lacy today? Not surviving, not management, thriving. What does your life look like now that you belong fully to you?
So I love that question because I thought about that recently, honestly. It was kind of like what does success look like, right? So in the past, success and thriving to me looked like several promotions, having an amazing title at my job, making tons of money. All those things are important, but they're not fulfilling for me at this stage in my life. For me, it is, I remember being a little girl who grew up and lived in Wellston, Missouri, St. Louis, and I went to a private school and I felt like I wasn't hood enough to live in that neighborhood, right? Then I went to a private school and I felt like I was too hood to be at the private school. Like I just didn't feel like there was a place that I felt that I fit in, right? So for me, thriving is where I am today, being 100,000% confident and resolute with who I am, the person in my brown skin. And I love that for me.
Final question for you. Um, so Trish, as we begin to close out on our time together, tell us what's on the horizon for you. What is the work you're called to do next, and where can people find you, follow your journey, and get their copy of Erased in My Home?
Sure. So the work that I'm called to do next is continuation of what I'm doing. I'm actually going to be starting some classes here in a few weeks where I'm going to be getting my mental health certificate, so I could be a mental health coach. So it's going to accompany the foundation, the Unerased Foundation, but also just I don't want to be out here spewing nonsense just simply because it was my journey. I want to have the knowledge and the intelligence and give people real information that I have learned to be able to help someone when they have no one else to turn to. I will have that information in my arsenal to be able to support and help them as well. So that's coming too. And then I am contemplating working on my second book, and we're contemplating on that as well. Also, while just continuing to successfully raise my daughter to be the wonderful human being that she is, and working on the Unerased Foundation. Also, next week, Sunday, though, is the actual launch of my very first podcast, Unerased with Trish Lacy. It's going to be streamed on 80 platforms with the support and help of Listen Linda Media. So you'll see that along with the work from my company, Next Chapter Media. So, and you can find me on trishlacy.com, on Instagram at sincerely underscore Trish. You can find me on TikTok at I am unerased. And you can find me on Facebook at trishlacy.author.
Okay. So just in closing, if you do you have any words of wisdom and encouragement for our audience? You've already given them the places to connect with you, and if you want to do that again, you can.
Well, the words of encouragement are for anyone that's out here that's listening. I appreciate everyone for showing up today, but you are not your circumstance. That's the biggest takeaway. I know how hard it is and how it seems, and I know that there are some people, so many people out here that are tired. You're exhausted. You go to work every single day. You come home. You take care of the kids. You cook dinner. You wash the clothes. I mean, there's a list of never-ending invisible tasks that we as women do, and there are some men that do it well as well. Just know that you are not alone. And what I encourage you to do, just know that this is just a chapter in your story. This is not the end. It doesn't have to be. You can rewrite the ending. And I encourage you to do so.
So when I'm about to close with this monologue for you, do you have a few minutes after I close to hang around for a few minutes?
I do.
All right. So I want to thank first of all, I want to thank each and every individual that's watched and that has maintained the entire time of watching this great story with Trish. And I encourage you all to please follow because I'm sure that the words and especially with the podcast that she's going to be launching, I'm sure that that's going to be an experience for each and every individual that needs to get some kind of learned experience from it. That's going to make your life a whole lot better. So in closing, Trisha Lacy, on behalf of everyone in this audience, everyone watching at home, and everyone who needed to hear exactly what you shared today, I want to say thank you. Not just for being on this show, thank you for being brave enough to live your story out loud. Thank you for choosing your daughter and in doing so, choosing yourself. Thank you for writing it down because someone somewhere is going to pick up Erased in My Home and find the word what they have been living through, and that word is going to be the beginning of their freedom. Today, we sat with a woman who lost 15 years inside a relationship designed to erase her, and we watched her walk in here fully, magnificently, undeniably herself. We talked about love bombing and gaslighting, about corporate masks and smear campaigns, about the moment a mother looked at her daughter and said, "Not one more day." We talked about healing, real healing, not the polished kind, and we talked about what it means to rise. If you're watching this right now and you're living in silence, please hear me. You're not invisible. You are not too far gone, and you are absolutely not what they told you you were. Get the book, Erased in My Home by Trish Lacy, available on Amazon right now. Let her story be your permission to slip. This has been CK Stories from the Heart, Season 1, Episode 9. I'm your host, Charles Zachary King, reminding you that every single story matters, every voice deserves to be heard, and the bravest thing you will ever do is tell the truth about your own life. Until we meet again, keep your heart open, keep your head up, and remember, your story isn't over. The chapter is still being written. Thank you all. Have a great evening, and we will see